Nothing that feeds the people in Tasmania is a native species. Yet the government, aided by the feds, were going to introduce native species legislation and make it mandatory for you to put it on your land. That was part of environmental integrity for Tasmania. And when you think about it, what native species in Australia do we eat today? And if you're going to have a debate with people about it, ask them, is it the gum leaves? Is it the emus? Is it the kangaroos? Is that we are supposed to feed 40 million people with in, 30 years' time? So environmental integrity can be a bigger bullet than the emissions trading scheme ever was, because it can stop us stone dead. And I'll repeat what I said before, the 5 essentials of life. Remember them: water, food, housing, transport and energy. They are the essentials of life. The Green Movement wants them all banned. They hate them all. And unfortunately, the politicians in their quest for votes so often go along with it. Ladies and gentlemen, that sums it up. We'll move a resolution in a minute. Thank you. It's also fell to me today to actually move a resolution about our new direction. Now, you heard a lot about it today of the things that are wrong with the MLA. Now, there's been a lot of people who have done a lot of work on a new plan for the MLA, or a restructure of the existing structures that we have in place today, which we have heard today have failed so badly. Now, the main author of this is a solicitor from New South Wales called Norman Hunt. And Norman, would you like to stand up there somewhere? He's right up the back there with his hand up in the air. He's a grey-haired gentleman like me, so please don't treat us too harshly. But Norman has developed this new strategic plan, which when I first read it, I couldn't get over the amount of work he'd put into it, the thoroughness of where he'd come from, and the scenarios that he'd raised. So what we've got and what we will have should address the problems of where we are. And first of all, I'll tell you why I'm supporting a restructure of the MLA and its satellites, as I call them. I'm not going to go into all their acronyms. We all know what they are: RMAC, AMC, Lee spelt them all out. The MLA as we know it today was formed about 1998, still about the time when I was very heavily involved with the Cattlemen's Union and had input to those sorts of things. Now, John Anderson was the promoter and the man who actually settled on that at that time. There were quite a few of us, and I was one of them, who said, that vehicle won't work. And it won't work for a few reasons. It won't work because there is no democratic elections to the structure at all. And the voting that people can have on it are not democratic in any way, shape or form. And my criticism was, when you have an organisation that is neither democratic and cannot be accountable to the ordinary levy payers, an unfortunate culture generally develops. And that unfortunate culture is generally a bit of disdain for the people who pay the levies, a bit of disinterest in their problems, and they become self-centred on the problems of the board rather than on the problems of the people. Now, I'm not feeling all that comfortable or all that smug, but that was in 1998 I held those reservations, and here we are in 2010, and I'm sad to say I think I was bloody well right. The thing about it is that in the 12 years that we've been going on with this, and the AMLC before it, we're still getting about the same prices that we got in 1970s. And in real terms, we've collapsed. And our tonnages of beef exported overseas has virtually unchanged. Where they've gone to may be different, but the total tonnage that we managed to export has bugger all changed in that time, and we're still dependent on the US and Japan as our major markets, with Korea and a small EU market which has been sitting idle at 7,500 tonnes for sort of an eternity, as our backups. Now, we've had a few rays of sunshine since 1998, but they are all accidents. And I'll just take you back to them. We had our first ray of sunshine when the BSE struck Canada and the United States, and they were locked out of the markets. Until that happened, our market was going downhill. We were losing market share to the United States and all our major markets, and we were getting less money. When they were shut out, we boomed. It was like winning lotto to us. Then we had a major win when the Argentinians committed suicide and decided they weren't going to export any more meat to the EU or anywhere else. A political decision which was a disaster for their country, and we profited from that. And then we profited when the EU itself had to default on their contract to supply Russia with meat. But you know, and you don't have to have me to tell you, that we don't win lotto every year, and we don't win trade art unions every year. And apart from those three little rays of sunshine, we've been on a downhill path in real terms ever since. We've heard all about the failures that we've got in our MLA structure, but my greatest concern was the MLA culture. Now, as I said, the culture that was put there actually is a result of the structure we've got. And if you bring up a subject today with any of the MLA people or any of the people on Cattle Council, what you generally have is a nice chat, and they'll be polite to you. But nothing changes. I had about a 4-hour phone conversation with Greg Brown after he contacted me about a matter. And he agreed with about 7 things that I'd said that was wrong, but nothing changed. If you have a bad day with any of those people, they say, well, look, you don't understand the problems. You know, you just have got no concept of what we're talking about. You go away and leave it to us. We know what's best. It makes you wonder, all those people to whom we pay our money and who are dependent on us for their livelihood didn't even bother to come today. Now, what was wrong with Don Heatley coming today? What is wrong with Greg Brown coming today? What is wrong with David Palmer of the MLA coming today? We are the people who are paying them to the tune of $130 million a year out of our cattle industry funds. We are the people whose problems they are supposed to be taking account of, but they didn't want to come. There's one thing I did learn in my years in the Cattlemen's Union when I was vice president and running things. If you had members with a problem, you went and sorted it out, and you got it fixed. You couldn't turn a blank eye and walk away. And I'm very disappointed those gentlemen never came today, because it consolidates my view that that's not the way you handle things. And imagine how different it would have been today if they would have been here and said, yeah, look, this is a problem. We need your help to fix it. We're here to listen. That would have been bloody wonderful. But it didn't happen. As a consequence, MLA has lost my confidence, and has lost my trust in them. As said, in promoting or going up with the idea that we need to restructure the MLA to make it more accountable and also more democratic, you must take in mind that this is not something that's just happened today. That was the recommendation of a Senate inquiry 8 years ago that's been shelved. So we're not talking new ground, we're just trying to reinvigorate something that should have happened many years ago. But if we're going to have a new structure, there's a couple of things I must tell you. It's no point putting back in place a structure that does not have the legislative capacity to actually act on our behalf. And quite a few things that was touched on by Barnaby is that we do not have the same anti-competition and antitrust laws in Australia that we do have in the United States. And he mentioned the Sherman Act. Now, the Sherman Act was passed in the United States in 1908, 102 years ago. That's how far we are behind for antitrust, anti-competition and anti-monopoly laws. That was passed 100 years ago in a country which is the heart and soul of capitalism and free enterprise in the world today. It's the shining example, but they saw it as necessary to pass it. They followed it up in 1929 with the US Packers and Stockyards Act, which aimed specifically at the beef industry in the United States. And in 2000, Bill Clinton signed into law an act which is titled the Livestock Mandatory Price Reporting Act, which requires all processors to mandatorily report to the USDA the prices they pay for their cattle and the prices they get for their box beef out the back door on a daily basis. Now, that brings me to something that was said to us a long time ago, and some of you would remember, with Ian Kennedy, when we were talking about cattle prices. And Ian said, "The price I offer you for your cattle is the lowest price that I think that you will accept." That was said 20 years ago. What has changed today? And there's nothing actually wrong with it. It's a free bargaining tool. But we're behind the 8 ball here in Australia for two things. We do not know the price that goes out the back door. We only know the price that goes in the front door. And we do not have the anti-monopoly and anti-competitive laws that exist in the United States. And they must be addressed in any new structure. So all I will say to you is this: Norman has done an awful amount of work with this strategic plan. I'm only going to touch on it lightly because it's mainly about principles rather than detail, because you must understand that even if we pass something here today, it becomes a ministerial responsibility to implement, which means there's going to have to be negotiation with a minister, negotiating with other people who he deems to be peak bodies, with other people who he sees has an interest in it no matter what. But there's one thing to make it more democratic that he has put in it: that of that board of a new structure, at least 3 of them, that's 1/3 of them, must be elected on a 1-member, 1-vote register, so that all of us mug levy payers can at least vote for 1/3 of the board without fear or favour from anyone else. So you'll be able to vote for who you like. To ensure that every PIC holder is entitled to vote without any requirement for further voting registration. At the present time, although you pay your levies, you can't automatically vote unless you go and register and become a member. And as we all know, as Bill Heffernan would say, that's bullshit. You've already paid your entry fee, fellas. So that's another thing he's written into it. And he also requires a majority vote from both PIC registers in order to establish or change the levy rate. They are just a few of the things that he's got in there. Is also to establish a meaningful nomination and electoral process of directors, so that they're just not hand-picked or hand-plucked by people out of the air to perpetuate a club. Now, I am not going to go into all the detail of it because I'll leave that for Norm if you have questions to him, because he's the legal eagle on it. But all I want to put to you is the broad principle that if we are going to change the MLA structure, it must be one that is absolutely democratic, is absolutely accountable, and where we, the levy payers, can sack board members who do not perform the same as we can sack politicians who do not perform through our votes at an annual general meeting. And the other thing about it that he's got, it's going to be a beef-specific corporation, not a combined one. At the present time you have sheep and cattle combined. I'll let Bill talk to the rest of it, Norman talk to the rest, but I'll just put this to you. If you're happy with the last 15 years of performance, where you've had no increase in tonnage of your beef sold overseas, then vote against us. If you're happy with falling real prices of the last 12 years, then vote against us. If you're happy with falling domestic consumption, vote against us. If you're happy with the MLA's failures and their cost increases, vote against us. If you're happy with the undemocratic elections to the MLA, vote against us. And if you're happy with lack of accountability to the MLA, you vote against us. But if you want to have some slight chance to see a little more sunshine in the time of ourselves and the time of our kids and our grandkids, I urge you, for God's sake, give us a go and try, and let's make something new out of it. Thank you.